Welcome back, everybody, to Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Hondo Carpenter, the beat writer covering the Raiders every day. And my guest today is a guy, John. How long have we been doing radio and covering sports together for?
We've been doing it back since 2009, which is a good long while now.
Wow, unbelievable. And you're not getting old, but man, I am 15 years. John is an extremely successful attorney in Atlanta. If you're ever in Atlanta and you need a great attorney, you look up Jonathan Shop. But John and I have been doing this for 15 years together. And he used to be a very successful sports broadcaster. And so he's going to join me once a week, and we're going to call this Around the NFL, where we're going to cover a lot of myriad of issues that deal with pro sports. Obviously, we'll deal with everything we're going to talk about is going to impact the Raiders, but around the world of sports. So, John, first of all, happy eve of the draft. This is a great time for us. And let's just dig in and get right to the subject. How's that?
That sounds great. It is an exciting time, excitement across the country for really the biggest event of the off season, no question.
Is it not amazing? I remember because you and I have been friends a long time. Is it not amazing to you how the NFL has masterfully played themselves into a relevant league? 300. I mean, I remember talking when they were coming out with the NFL Network, and you're like, who's going to watch it in June or whatever? And the way that they master free agency, and then right after the draft, it's the schedule release, and then OTAs and mini camps. They give the NFL credit, love them or hate them. They've done an amazing job, have they not?
Yeah, they really have, because what they've done is they've taken an insider event, which was the NFL draft, and it's transcended the sport, and now it's really a pop culture event. That is what I did not see coming. I did not see hundreds of thousands of people coming. I did not see cities bidding to host the draft. We got Kansas City ready this year. Detroit's all ready to go next year. That is something that it's very hard to take an entertainment event and have it transcend, meaning go beyond your core audience. No, I don't think anybody saw this quite coming even 10 or 15 years ago. So all credit is to them, because it's blown up so much larger than really anyone would expect. An organizational meeting where they're just picking people to work for them.
You know what's amazing to me, John, is a couple years ago at the Combine, I learned that they're now going to let cities bid to host the Combine.
Yeah, I understand it. When you think about it,
Unbelievable.
when you look at it on a business perspective, the NFL is arguably the most popular form of entertainment in the country. And with that in mind, with the massive project that we probably understated, when the NFL moved operations out to California, it really reset the deck. So the idea of moving the combine around the four corners of the country and in through the middle now doesn't seem all that crazy at all. The facilities are there, the demand is there. This is just the next step. But man, oh man, when you've got this kind of open party that is the NFL draft, and it has this much success on national TV, there's going to be 15 plus million people that watch it this weekend. No, nobody could have seen that coming. So yeah, there's a lot of credit to pass around, and all of it is earned, because at the end of the day, the numbers are the numbers, the viewers are the viewers. There's no smoke screen here. There's no, well, we're not sure. This is the huge event of the spring for the sport. It's become really the landmark.
And the thing that gets me is I remember when NFL Network said, okay, we're going to do the draft, and so is ESPN. And everyone's like, oh, the ratings are going to suck. They both get record ratings. It's just amazing. All right. We're going to cover 3 topics today around the world of the NFL. And I think they're all very important topics. The first we're going to look at is the rookie salary cap. Now, you and I remember teams would go out and pick a quarterback high and pay him stupid money. And I want to make sure this is really clear, because I'm a free market capitalist. I never blame a player for getting everything he can get. But I also don't blame teams then when they say to a player, hey, you're not worth it. So I get it. I understand it. But it used to be they would put all this money, and it was for all these years into these rookies. and teams were stuck to a guy. Okay, you're stuck to him. You can't get rid of him. Now, because of the rookie salary cap, quarterback's the most important position. They're able to go up. Right now, there's already talk that San Francisco is looking to trade Trey Lance 2 years later after being, I think he was the third pick overall, because of that new structure. I love the money's going to the veterans. I love the money's going to guys after their 4 or 5 year rookie deals because they've earned it. I love it. I have no problem with it. I think it's made the NFL better. Your thoughts?
Well, it really is a big change. I think about 2011 when the rookie cap came in, it's almost really a cap within a cap. It started to change things. And you've got, if you want to go deep in the woods, you check out Rule 51 and see what that has to do with the money that hits the cap and doesn't. I think it's made a huge change. And I think it encourages teams to maybe go fishing for quarterbacks later in the draft. I think it encourages teams to really accelerate the value evaluation of what is the value of this player. So you've got Trey Lance, you've got some injury history, you've got a limited pool of experience. It's very possible that San Francisco could find enough value to make it really a no-brainer for them to move on. But the fact that they've got the rookie cap, the position, the way it works, allows them to have obviously more than one very young quarterback working on his rookie deal. So it is changing the landscape. I'm sure there's more work to do in the back end of the decade to maybe adjust the numbers, but more people need to pay a little more attention to the rookie cap. It affects teams like the Raiders in recent history a lot different than it affects like the 49ers, who are obviously on the other side of that equation right now.
Yeah, let's go back and look. I mean, the Raiders, not under Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, but under John Gruden and Mike Mayock, were terrible first round, guys. Look at what they did. I mean, all you got to look at is Damon Arnett. I mean, I remember when they picked Damon Arnett, you and I were like, the guy from Ohio State. I knew NFL teams that didn't even have him on their draft board because of the off the field issues. And then, you're like, wow. And then Alex Leatherwood, which was a major, and they were able to just cut him last year. Yeah, it cost me $16 million, but before, a rookie and going into his second year, boom, gone. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's impacted and it's really saved the Raiders' rear as of late.
It has. And when we look to this draft, a lot of eyes are going to be on Seattle because they've got two picks inside the top 20. What do they do with those, and how much of an advantage do they have? If you've got 2 picks in the top 20, you manage the downside, meaning maybe you take guys that have a low bust potential and you've got them on their rookie deals for a number of years. It does kind of change the landscape of how teams put their rosters together. And of course, the quarterback's always the most important position in the sport. So let's keep an eye on that this week and see who might do something we don't expect when it comes to drafting a quarterback.
Now, this was not something we were going to discuss, but there's a lot of rumors that the Seahawks want to move up to get Jalen Carter. Dare I say we're looking at Malik McDowell 2.0?
Well, in one sense, you think yes, because you've got a lot of talent and some potential issues. On the other, what are the odds that scenario could happen again? When I look at Carter, I think one of the best possible things he could do is get a long way away from Metro Atlanta and from where University of Georgia is. So Seattle really satisfies that. But you've got baggage there. But man, oh man, we've seen Pete Carroll do some things in the past drafts. They've got 2 picks in the top 20. I look at them and think, take a guy on the line in each pick. Maybe they've got a wide receiver interest, but Carter is a guy certainly, you tell me, could go between 5 and 25.
I got a lot of teams that I know of that don't have him as a first round grade. I mean, listen, I've had a lot of people tell me he's the most talented guy in the draft, but there's too many concerns. So, all right, moving on from him now, our second topic. The NFL made an announcement that sent shockwaves through their fan base that said, we're moving the NFL Sunday ticket from, I think it was on DirecTV. I don't get it, obviously, because I'm at the games, but we're going to move it to streaming at YouTube. Your thoughts on this one, Johnny Shop?
Well, it really was a shock because it looked like they were going to be going with Apple, which has done some work with Major League Baseball on Friday and kind of had infrastructure there. But this is a game changer for a couple of reasons. The first concern is quite honestly latency, and that is the delay from the time of the broadcast to the time it hits your screen. There's issues when you're streaming with a delay. So the broadcast may be 10 or 15 seconds ahead. I bet you that's a massive issue that YouTube's aware of and that they're going to do something to address that we just don't know about yet. As the NFL has become more and more a gambling product and people are gambling in game by phone, they want to see more of these games. There's a bigger appetite for this ticket, and it's going to be accessible as long as you have an internet connection. That's a really nice thing. You don't need a satellite dish to get anything. You can get the games, plus the red zone. And an important change here, Hondo, this year is there's only going to be one red zone. In the past, there was the DirecTV red zone and the NFL Network red zone. Now there's just going to be one. So there's a lot of new options. I think it's more accessible for folks. The price is what it is. The market will determine if that's too much or too little. But as a consumer, I don't mind it because I myself, I've got to purchase it. It's going to stand alone, meaning I don't have a YouTube TV account. And I will use it to monitor the games I want, probably while I have my main game on the main screen. What it does is bring in the option to take the NFL with you anywhere you have an internet connection. That is a transformative moment in NFL broadcast history.
Yeah, John, I'm going to go back because you and I'm older than you, but I remember this specifically. You may not, but I remember when Fox got the NFL. Now, it used to be it was on CBS and NBC and ABC, but when Fox first got it, people said it's the end of the NFL. Now you got to have cable. People aren't going to go get cable just so they can watch the NFL. And I laughed. I remember when Big Ten Network first came out, sitting with my buddy Tom Izzo, saying, this is ridiculous. Now people aren't going to get to watch our games if they don't have cable. But guess what? Things evolve. America's already cutting the cords. They're already cutting the cord on television. Television is going away. I know that a lot of people, you're speaking hyperbole, especially if you're over 50. But it is. If you look at the younger generation, that, from kids now to 34, everything's on their phone. I can tell you this. I can put something on YouTube or on our Sports Illustrated Fan Nation page and goes viral and never has to hit TV anymore. You may remember when the internet first started and I transitioned from television. I mean, I still did television and still do it now, but did television. People are like, internet's never going to work. Well, all of a sudden I was breaking stories that people would have to wait till the next morning to get in the newspaper. And all of a sudden people are like, wow, this internet thing's pretty good. And I would put videos up that people would have to wait till the next day to see on the local television station. And anyways, it changes it. I don't see a negative here. And I know people are going to talk about cost or whatever. To me, if you're the National Football League and you're trying to stay relevant, and we know the most important demographic is 18 to 49, and those people are cutting the cord in a massive way. To me, like it or not, this was brilliant by Roger Goodell.
I would agree. The most popular form of entertainment in the country can now travel with you by phone anywhere around the country. This is a move to stay with or ahead of the curve. It's going to be remarkably successful. And the NFL, as big as it is, it could not design and produce its own app out of nowhere that people could buy and carry all this. This is a very logical step with the infrastructure behind it. I'm real interested to see what Google does, what YouTube TV does to cut down on that lag. I'm also interested to see if it's time to revisit the 7-second delay that is in all the broadcasts of the NFL games. These are things that are going to shake out over the next couple years as we see how the YouTube product works with the ticket, as we see how the red zone evolves, and as we see how this new, really streaming age of NFL content takes off.
All right. So now I want to get into, and I'm looking at my notes here, but the spring leagues. I think you and I are big fans of XFL I think we're big fans of the USFL, and they both now seem to have found their footing. They both now seem to be managed in a smart way. I think it's the USFL that's working with the NFL, or is it the XFL?
I think it's the XFL.
Okay, I'm sure I'm wrong, but I like anytime there's football. And you and I were talking about this, John. Is this like when the AFL and the NFL knew, okay, at some point they're going to have to come together? At some point, does there have to be a coalescing of the XFL and the USFL? Is football big enough that they can handle the two different brands? I want to answer this, then I want to dig in some more on these two spring leagues and how I think they can be made better. But what are your thoughts?
I think that ultimately one spring league is the answer. You look right now, the XFL is in progress, close to wrapping up. They have 10 games, 2 playoffs, runs from February 18 to May 13. The USFL is the one that just kicked off, running from April 15 to June 18. It's a 10-game season, 2 playoffs, ending on July 4th weekend. You know, back in the day when you and I dreamt of a spring pro league, the dream was that it would start the week after the Masters and end on approximately July 4th weekend. That's what the USFL has now. So when I look at scheduling wise, I can see it kind of moving, because when you start the week after the Super Bowl, that may be a little bit too much for the consumer. It is important to note this. This is a TV product first, without any question. The fact that everybody accepts and knows that these are TV products first is a really good thing. Relying on attendance is not an issue. It's a TV product first. So now you start to look about, are there enough players to field 2 leagues? Is there enough demand for that many basically potential future NFL players? I'm not sure that's the answer. I do like the 2 leagues. I do think we're going to see them probably have to come together before even 2025.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about these spring leagues, because I think there's a lot that the NFL can do to let these guys really showcase their talent and allow NFL teams. Would you like to see, and I know a lot of people disagree with this, that's why I'm asking your opinion. I disagree with what I'm about to ask, but on our podcast, we don't stay away from disagreement. But some of these guys that are at the end of the roster, maybe on the practice squad, guys that are the 49th, 50th, 51st guy, hey, we're going to send you down to the spring leagues and you're going to play to work your talent so you can possibly, well, if you get injured, because I know there's what happens if they get injured in the spring league. Do they get paid on their big league money, whatever it is? What are some of your thoughts about the ways they can even make these things better and coalesce even more with the National Football League?
Yeah, I think integration with the NFL is definitely the future, and start with the roster. You're talking to a guy that, without any question, every single year, nearly every single week, is screaming at the NFL to expand their game day roster to about 65 to 70 players. I don't think there's any reason in the world the most popular form of entertainment, the best sport in the country, doesn't have that much. I know it's going to cost people money. They're also, you're asking the biggest business of them all to do it. So when I look at players on the roster, maybe from 50 on, yeah, I think ultimately you need to have some integration with the spring league. The timing of these leagues is such, and especially the USFL ends on July 4th weekend. Training camps start in late July. I think that's enough time to sort everything out. And I do think that as soon as next year, we might see some teams maybe informally suggest, hey, maybe we're going to cut you and go play in a spring league and we'll see what you do. So the initial thought of mine is roster integration, but we can't not mention the ability to try out new rules. When you look at the kickoffs in the XFL, I think you're looking at the future of kickoffs in the XFL. They're so much safer. And while people, even Rich McKay down here in Atlanta and other folks, have been talking about this kind of idea for kickoffs in the future, they never had a chance to game test it. Nobody's ever going to just live test it in the NFL. So I'm really excited about those. And when you watch these games and you can score 9 on a possession, it is remarkably different how much more seesaw there can be with a 3-point conversion, for example. I'm not saying we need to bring that into the NFL. I'm saying these
I love it.
Yeah, these leagues are a fantastic actual testing ground at a professional level for things like the kickoff rule change conversions. And I think they've got to be integrated with the NFL relative to roster. Again, I see that coming before the end of the decade, much sooner than later, as this all sorts itself out when these two leagues likely end up as one.
John, next week when we come together on Thursday, we're going to really dig in on the draft. We're going to talk about some winners and losers, which I don't like doing because you're never going to know till 4 years down the road. But I think we can look at just based on where people project people to be winners and losers. It's going to be a lot of fun. 15 years together, Johnny. Wow.
It went fast, but we're just getting started, folks.
All right. Give my best to your beautiful bride, friend. See you soon. That's the great Johnny Shop. You're listening to Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, going around the world of the NFL.